In the previous section, we compared condominiums and cooperatives, exploring how shared ownership can take many legal and financial forms. We also examined how organizations such as associations and boards oversee community properties. Now, as we bring this chapter to a close, it's important to step back and summarize all the ways property can be held, individually, jointly, corporately, or through trusts. These forms of ownership determine how property is transferred, inherited, and managed under law. Sole ownership tenancy in severalty represents the most straightforward form of property ownership. Sole ownership. The term severalty means severed from all others. When an individual holds title in severalty, they have full control of the property, subject only to government powers such as taxation, eminent domain, police power, and escheat. In this arrangement, the single owner holds all rights in the bundle of ownership: possession, control, enjoyment, exclusion, and disposition. Upon the owner's death, the property passes according to their will, or if no will exists, through intestate succession under state law. For example, if Angela owns a parcel of land in her name alone, she has the freedom to sell, lease, mortgage, or transfer it at any time. When she dies, her will determines who inherits it. Sole ownership is most often used by individuals, corporations, which legally act as one person, and sometimes partnerships when one partner holds property in their own name for business purposes. Co-ownership. When two or more individuals hold title to the same property, it is referred to as co-ownership or concurrent ownership. The nature of the co-owner's rights depends on how the ownership is structured. Tenancy in common. Under tenancy in common, two or more people hold undivided ownership interest in the property, but each owns their share independently. Each co-owner may have a different percentage of ownership, and there is no right of survivorship. Upon the death of a tenant in common, their share passes to their heirs or through their will, not automatically to the surviving co-owners. Example: if Maria and Daniel own a property as tenants in common, Maria may hold 60% and Daniel 40%. When Maria dies, her 60% passes to her heirs, not Daniel. This structure allows flexibility and is common in investment partnerships. Joint tenancy. Joint tenancy provides equal, undivided ownership among co-owners and includes the important right of survivorship, meaning when one owner dies, their interest automatically transfers to the surviving owners. Creating a joint tenancy requires the four unities. Unity of time. All owners acquire title at the same time. Unity of title. All owners acquire title by the same deed. Unity of interest. All owners have equal shares in the property. Unity of possession. All owners have equal rights to use and possess the entire property. Example: if brothers John and Mark purchase a home as joint tenants, each holds a 50% interest with survivorship. If John passes away, Mark automatically becomes the sole owner, avoiding probate. Tenancy by the entirety. Tenancy by the entirety is a special form of joint ownership reserved for married couples, including same-sex spouses in many states. It provides equal, undivided ownership with the right of survivorship, but neither spouse can convey or encumber the property without the other's consent. If one spouse dies, the surviving spouse becomes the sole owner. If the couple divorces, the tenancy automatically converts to a tenancy in common, unless otherwise stated. This form of ownership protects the property from foreclosure for individual debts. Only debts incurred jointly can threaten the property. Community Property Arizona is a community property state, meaning most property acquired during marriage, other than gifts or inheritances, is owned equally by both spouses. Separate property includes assets acquired before marriage or received as a gift or inheritance during marriage. For example, if David and Laura buy a home together while married, it is considered community property. If Laura inherits a vacation cabin from her grandmother, that cabin remains her separate property. Upon death, half of the community property automatically belongs to the surviving spouse, while the other half passes according to the decedent's will or state law. Tenancy in partnership. Tenancy in partnership applies to business co-ownerships. Property acquired and used by a partnership for its business purposes is held by the partners collectively. While each partner has rights to use the property for business, they cannot individually sell or encumber it without the consent of all partners. Upon dissolution of the partnership, property is divided according to the partnership agreement. Trusts. A trust is a legal arrangement in which one party, the trustor, transfers property to another party, the trustee, to be held for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. Trusts are often used in estate planning to manage or transfer property privately and efficiently. Living trust. A living trust, inter vivos trust, takes effect during the trustor's lifetime. The trustor can act as both trustee and beneficiary, retaining control while alive. Upon the trustor's death, the successor trustee distributes assets according to the trust's terms, avoiding probate. Testamentary trust. A testamentary trust takes effect after the trustor's death, as specified in their will. It allows for structured asset management for beneficiaries, such as minor children or dependents. Land trust. A land trust is specific to real estate. The trustor and beneficiary may be the same person, with a trustee holding title on behalf of the beneficiary. The beneficiary retains control of the property and remains anonymous in public records, a feature often used for privacy and estate planning. The trust typically has a limited term and must be renewed or liquidated after expiration. Condominiums. As explored earlier, a condominium represents freehold ownership of a unit's airspace combined with an undivided interest in the common elements held as a tenant in common with other owners. Units can be sold, mortgaged, or foreclosed individually without affecting other owners. Condominiums are created through a developer's declaration and governed by bylaws and associations. Cooperatives. A cooperative, co-op, involves ownership of shares in a corporation that owns the entire property. Instead of owning real estate, shareholders receive a proprietary lease granting the right to occupy a unit. Because the corporation owns the property, financial issues affect all shareholders collectively. Timeshares. A timeshare provides leasehold or ownership rights to use a property on a periodic or scheduled basis. Owners share use of vacation properties, typically purchasing a specific week or month each year. Timeshares can be structured as leaseholds, limited duration, or freeholds, ownership interest, with all owners sharing maintenance expenses. Review summary. Throughout this chapter, you have explored the full spectrum of property ownership, from sole ownership to complex shared and trust arrangements. Tenancy in severalty gives a single person complete control and responsibility. Tenancy in common allows multiple owners to hold separate, undivided interests without survivorship. Joint tenancy provides equal ownership and survivorship among co-owners. Tenancy by the entirety safeguards spousal property from individual debts and ensures survivorship. Community property defines marital ownership under Arizona law. Trusts create fiduciary arrangements for managing property during or after life. Condominiums and cooperatives allow for shared living with differing ownership forms, real property versus personal property. Timeshares provide recurring usage rights for leisure properties. Each ownership form carries unique rights, responsibilities, and implications for taxation, inheritance, and liability. Real estate professionals must understand these distinctions to properly guide clients through ownership choices and ensure legal compliance in every transaction. Discussion. How does tenancy in severalty differ from joint tenancy? Answer. Tenancy in severalty involves sole ownership, while joint tenancy involves co-ownership with the right of survivorship. What are the 4 unities required to create a joint tenancy? Answer. time, title, interest, and possession. Why might a married couple choose tenancy by the entirety over community property? Answer: tenancy by the entirety provides survivorship and protection from individual creditors, while community property divides ownership equally but doesn't automatically include survivorship. What is the primary distinction between a condominium and a cooperative? Answer: a condominium involves ownership of real property, a unit and shared common areas, while a cooperative involves ownership of corporate shares and a proprietary lease. Closing remarks. This chapter has tied together the many ways individuals and entities can own, share, or manage property. From the simplicity of sole ownership to the complexity of trusts and cooperatives, each structure serves a different purpose, whether privacy, partnership, estate planning, or shared living. For real estate professionals, understanding these ownership forms isn't just academic, it is essential to ensuring every client's property rights are protected, properly conveyed, and aligned with their financial and personal goals.